Hi Stampers, I'm Nancy Novak from StampinShout.com. It's Tuesday, August 25th, and I'm here every Tuesday to do a Facebook Live with you at 4 o'clock. I also post my videos on YouTube, so whether you're watching me live or if you're watching me on replay, go ahead and type in hi so I know you are here, and type in your comments and questions and I'll be sure to reply. Share my video, that's always appreciated very much. And so this week I'm working on some cards that are from the Nothing Better Than stamp set and Love You More Than dies. So what I've been doing is every week I pick a stamp set and make projects and cards and share them with you on my blog and on my Facebook group page. So let's turn the camera around and we'll talk about what I'm making today. So today I have a waterfall card, and let me show you the stamp set first. So the stamp set is Nothing Better Than, and it has coffee, cookies, cocktails, and chocolate, and it's got sentiments and the little designs of the cookies and the chocolates and the coffee cup and the cocktail glass to go along with it. And it comes with the Love You More Than dies. So it cuts out those words and the shapes of the cookies and the cocktails, and it also has a cutout that says Love You More Than. So it's a really fun set to use. And so like I said, this week I am posting all week the different projects that I'm making in cards, so make sure you check them out. And my blog is www.stampinshout.com. So back to the waterfall card. So let me show you. So it says here, today's plan, consume, and then you've got coffee, cookies, chocolate, and cocktails. And then you just kind of push this back up and it all comes back together. And then you open it up and it says, because adulting is hard. So we're going to recreate this, but we're going to create it just a little bit different. Instead of having it open up, I'm just going to have it be a solid card that you can mail just like that. So let me talk a little bit about what the supplies are that I'm using. I have crushed curry cardstock, and this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So if you wanted to make it this way, you would cut it to be 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, and you'd score it at 4 1/4. But today this is 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. Then I have a piece of designer series paper, and this is Playing with Patterns designer series paper. Let me show that to you real quick. So that's a pack of 6 by 6 paper, gorgeous designs, and I just love the 6 by 6 paper. It's really a good deal. So we're using this design, and it is 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then I have Night of Navy 4 squares that are 2 1/4 by 2 1/4. So I got 4 of those. And then when I cut this piece down, you're going to see that you have an extra piece. This is just the opposite side, and this is 1 inch by 4 inches. And then I have some white Whisper White squares that are 2 inch squares, so they're 2 by 2. And then I had a scrap of Night of Navy, and I've already gone ahead and stamped today's plan, consume, and we'll put that on our card. I'll show you how we do that. And then I have the strip. This is the waterfall strip, and it's heavy, thick cardstock. So this card here, I kind of forgot. I hadn't made one in a while, and I just used regular Whisper White, which is fine, it works. But for today's card, I'm going to use the thick Whisper White, and that is 2 1/4 by 9 3/4. And first thing we're going to do is score this. We're going to score it at, let me get my notes here, 2 1/4, 3 1/8, 4 inches, and 4 7/8. Hang on here, let's see, let me load my comments, see who's here with me today. So let me bring in my scoreboard. Hi everyone, so glad you're here. I missed you last week. So again, we're going to score this at 2 1/4, 3 1/8, 4, and 4 7/8. So the 2 1/4, and then it's a 7/8 inch jump between the next score lines. So just gonna go ahead and burnish all those, fold them up, fold on your score lines. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside and I'm going to do some stamping. I started to do the stamping ahead of time, but I wanted to make sure I shared it with you because there are a couple of hints. So I couldn't get it all done ahead of time just because I wanted to make sure you saw what I was doing. Because when you're designing this yourself, well, as I stamp, you'll see what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and bring in one of our little squares, and I'm going to bring in crushed curry. So the paper that I showed you earlier, the Playing with Patterns paper, I'm using all those color inks, and as I'm using them, I'll tell you what they are. So I stamped in crushed curry the word chocolate, and I'm going to stamp this at the bottom of that 2-inch square. I'm going to bring it in so I can kind of see. Okay, and the reason I want to stamp it at the bottom is because you have about 7/8 of an inch to show on each of these squares. So as you can see my word. So if I stamped it up too high, obviously it would be crooked or it wouldn't show, you know, correctly. So I did that, and then I'm going to go ahead and stamp my chocolate candy, and gotta find my early espresso. Here it is. So I stamped the outline of the chocolate in early espresso, and I'm going to stamp this up higher because again I don't want it to, if I stamp it too low it's going to show through, and it, you know, depending on how lucky I am, it may show through, but if you stamp up on the upper part it should not show up underneath until you flip that card, and then it pops there, then you see it. So I did the outline in early espresso, and then there's a solid stamp, and I stamped that in Blushing Bride. So it kind of reminds me of those little raspberry gotta clean that. Raspberry chocolates that you see with a little bit of dark chocolate swirl on top. All right, so make sure that's clean. So Blushing Bride, and I'm just going to line it up. Okay. And then for the coffee, I did this, the outline earlier in Night of Navy, and I'm going to be doing a lot of cleaning of my stamps as we're going along and changing colors, so I'm going to just bring this little piece of that little block in there and kind of put my stamps on there so I don't lose them. And I'm going to bring in the solid stamp for the coffee, and I stamped that in Calypso Coral. So I stamped the word coffee in Calypso Coral, I stamped the outline in Night of Navy, and I'm stamping the solid part in Calypso Coral. Okay. And let's bring this cocktails back in. I didn't want to do the whole thing because I wanted to show you the stamping of the lime and the umbrella. Excuse me, a little frog in my throat there. So there's a little teeny tiny stamp. That's gonna, it's a solid stamp, and it's gonna color in my lime. And I did that in Granny Apple Green. Of course, if you'd rather have a lemon to garnish your cocktail, go ahead and use crushed curry or one of the yellow inks. So I'm just going to line this up. I'm bringing it a little closer so I can see what I'm doing. So there's my lemon. And then clean these off. Then for my umbrella, I'm going to do that in Highland Heather. So I'm going to see here. So there's my little umbrella stamp. Okay. So one other thing, if you're going to copy the one that I'm doing exactly, the cocktail stamp, let me show you this one. See the cocktail stamp? It's got the base on there. Well, I didn't stamp the base on here because I didn't want it to show through. Let me show you. So I didn't want the base showing through my word cocktails. So I just inked up the top of the stamp, and I did it in Night of Navy. And then I did my lemon and my umbrella like you just saw, and that inside of the cocktail is the Blushing Bride. Okay, so now we've got those three done, and now we have to do the cookie. So let me bring in the cookie stamp. And I did that in Gorgeous Grape. Again, I'm going to stamp at the bottom of that 2-inch square. And do I want it like, yeah, let me see if that's going to be good. Yep, it's going to work. So yep, at the bottom. And then I did the cookie outline in Early Espresso. So let me bring that in. So again, Early Espresso for my cookie outline. And I'm going to do it up at the top. And then I filled it in with the solid stamp, and I used crumb cake. So I think I've told you guys before that the software that I use to do my videos, I can see all your comments, but it just says Facebook user. It doesn't give me your name. When I'm all done and I go back and I look at my post, I can see who you are. So I know you're all there and I can see your comments. I'm just not sure who's saying each one until I go back later and look. But I appreciate your comments and I appreciate you being here. Okay, so crumb cake, and again it's the polymer stamp, so you can kind of see through. I'm just going to line it up. I'm off center, so it might be a little crooked. There you go. Okay, so clean my stamps, and we're going to put this together. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach each one of those squares to a navy blue square. I'm just going to use Tombow glue. For this card, I recommend using Tombow glue rather than snail, because it's, there's a lot of movement every time you flip that waterfall card, so you want it to really, really stick well. Okie doke. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to bring these two pieces together, and I've just got a little hard piece of styrofoam, and I'm going to attach this piece with brads. So you can find brads wherever. I do have some brads that I got from Stampin' Up! A couple years ago, but everyone has brads, so you can find them quite easily. So I think this time I'm going to use my white brads. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this 1-inch strip, and I laid it down on my designer series paper, and I laid it about 1 inch from the bottom. And then I just kind of eyeballed the center. Whoop, you know what? I didn't do that. I poked a hole first. So I'm going to poke a hole with my paper snips. This is probably the hardest part. Should have poked a better hole. I know I have a little poker around here somewhere, but I'm just going to use my paper snips. So I'm opening up that brad to hold it in place. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and make a better hole this time. And I'm going to go ahead and put the brad in. And then I'm opening up the brad on the back to hold that piece in place. And yeah, you do want to use brads because this gets a lot of action, you know, a lot of tugging, so that's the purpose of that. So this is going to be attached to our card base, but before we do that, so I got one long strip here, and I've got all these scored strips, and I'm going to start with the big square. And I'm going to put my cocktail square there. This is going to be on the bottom, the last one you see. So I'm going to glue this back. And what I'm going to do is line this square up right there on that fold. Just like that. Okay? Then I'm going to bring in my chocolate and I'm going to glue it. Okay, so you want to put glue on here, just on the strip, and just on that one section. So if I can get my glue to come out. Okay, so now we're going to take this piece and line it up at the top. Okay, so the glue goes on the strip, not on the back of the squares. So the next one I'm going to bring up is cookies. And I'm going to put glue on this strip here. And attach this one right up at the top. And I got one more. Okay. All right, so that's our little strip. And since I have this off, I think I'm going to go ahead and punch. What I'm going to do is do a little bit of a label punch here at the bottom. You could just poke a hole if you wanted to, but that's going to be for a ribbon in a little bit. You'll see what I mean. So this is 2 1/4, so it's a little bit bigger than, but I'm just going to center it. Best I can. And like I said, you can just punch a hole if you'd like, but I got a little bit of a design there with that label punch. And then I'm going to bring in some Night of Navy. And I'm going to stamp my sentiment. And the sentiment is, because adulting is hard, which I think goes really well with this whole card. So I'm just going to stamp that right here, right in the center, because when you open it, you'll see it. Okay, doke. So we're just going to put this together. I'm going to go ahead and attach my Designer Series paper to the card base. Right in the center. A little bit of glue squirted out there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is you slide this piece in and then close it up, and you're going to look at it and you're going to decide where you want it to be on this card. So obviously I want it centered. And I'm holding the bottom piece. I'm getting all this out of the way, and I'm going to put some, I'm going to refit that again, but I'm going to take tear and tape. Oops, see, my hands were sticky. But I'm going to put tear and tape on this strip right here, and I'm going to close this, and it's going to hold this all together. So you'll see what I mean as I do it. Okay, I'm going to look at it one more time before I take that tear and tape off. So again, I've got this centered. I'm holding this bottom piece that I slipped underneath. I'm going to take the tear and tape off. You could use glue here, but I do like the tear and tape better. And I'm going to close this whole thing like that, and let it get stuck to that tear and tape. And let's see what happens here. I'm not done with the card, but see, that's how it works. And it's definitely better with that the thick Whisper White cardstock. So I'm just going to pull this out again, and I'm going to go ahead and grab my ribbon. And put a little ribbon tie on here. Just sticking it through the front. I'm going to stick them both through the front and then loop it. This is the other thing that I thought was the hardest. I had the hardest time doing this yesterday. So I'm just looping it. I took this little, the sentiment that I stamped earlier, and I used Versamark and the white embossing powder, and I cut it apart. I cut it into 3 little rectangles. I'm going to attach these with the mini Stampin' Dimensionals. So let's bring in those minis, and got today's plan, consume. I'm going to cut this down a little bit more because it kind of just fits. Today's plan, consume. And my mini dimensionals, I think I'm going to cut them in half. They kind of just fit. But I know they'll be fine. Whoop, if I put them on, if I cut them in half. Okay, let's see what we got. I gotta fix my ribbon after, but I can do that later. So, today's plan: consume coffee, cookies, chocolate, and my favorite, cocktails, because adulting is hard. And then you can go ahead and sign your name there, or you could sign it on the back. So just a little bit different from my first card. So I don't know which one you prefer. Basically the same, you just need a bigger base. I guess that's it. I hope you enjoyed my video. Be sure to visit my blog daily because I do post all my cards there, and I have more information, some inspiration, shopping links, stamping tips, and how to get a discount on all your stamping purchases going forward. So that's also the place where you can sign up for my newsletter, because every Thursday I have a newsletter that I send out, and I have a free PDF in there. So you can get a free card and how to make a card or a project. I made a box a couple weeks ago. And contact me with all your stamping questions, because I'd love to help you, especially if you're a new stamper. I just really like stamping, and I like sharing it with you. So make sure you contact me. Leave your comments. Thanks so much, and don't be shy. Stamp and shout.